And welcome back to another devotion. I am Pastor Roy Carlin here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and this devotion is for Thursday, July 10th of 2025. We are in the book of Acts, and today we're in chapter 18. Actually, we're almost done with chapter 18. Next week on Tuesday, we will wrap up chapter 18, and next Thursday, a week from today, we will jump into 19. But for now, we are looking at verses 18 to 23 in chapter 18 of the book of Acts. Paul is in Corinth yet at the beginning of this. He had just got done with being brought before Gallo, some of the other Jewish people. And again, we don't know if these are people that were following one of the traditional sects of Judaism, probably Pharisees, or if it's some other Jewish Christians that believe he should adhere more closely to traditional Judaism and following all of the laws. None of this, you don't need to be circumcised nonsense and all of that. We don't know if it's A or B there. But he's been brought before the tribunal. He's been brought before the proconsul, Gallo, and Gallo has listened to their problems and said, "This is a problem between it's an inside deal. You all work it out amongst yourselves." And the Jewish leaders weren't too happy about that, and they beat up the new leader of the synagogue. Poor guy, just got a new job and already getting wailed on. It makes no sense at all. So at any rate, verse 18 is where we're going to pick up, and this is still, again, we're still in Corinth at the very, very beginning of this. But there's going to be a lot of movement. We'll talk about that. A lot of moving around. After this, Paul stayed many days longer, and then took leave of the brethren, and sailed for Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila. At Caesarea he cut his hair, for he had a vow. And they came to Ephesus, and he left them there. But he himself went into the synagogue, and argued with the Jews. When they asked him to stay for a longer period, he declined. But on taking leave of them, he said, "I will return to you, if God wills." And he set sail from Ephesus. Then he landed at Caesarea. He went up and greeted the church, and then went down to Antioch. After spending some time there, he departed and went from place to place through the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. Okay. A lot of movement. A lot of time actually is elapsing in this short few verses here. Don't let it fool you. This isn't just like there's some time elapsing here. Because at the very beginning, verse 18, it says he stayed in Corinth many days longer. How long is many days? I don't know. Is that a week or is that a month? Or is it, it's not a year. He was only there a year and a half, but we don't know that definition of many days. But he's there for a while longer. And then he takes leave and he heads for Syria. And he takes with him Priscilla and Aquila, which is interesting. They are kind of become part of his traveling gang now. They are very important to Paul. At Caesarea, which I apologize if I'm slaughtering that pronunciation, he gets a haircut. And, we would kind of go, "Hey, he got a haircut. Big deal." But he did it for he had a vow. That little verse right there tells us something that we in this day and age just miss it. It goes right over our heads. But it wouldn't have been so in Paul's time. He had a vow. He had a Nazarite vow, is what he had, it appears. One of the things that they would do is they would take a vow to for some period of time. And one of the things they would do, and we know Paul engages in Nazarite vows because when he gets arrested in the temple, he is doing a Nazarite vow, a Nazarite fast or whatever in the temple. So he is doing that at the behest of James, the just, the brother of Jesus. And in fact, James has him finance some other people to do it. Thank you very much, James. But so Paul does take part in Nazarite. He's a Pharisee, but he's taking part in some of these traditions. We know that he does, and it seems that this is what it would be because that's one of the vows that they would take as a Nazarite. I'm not going to cut my hair for this period of time for whatever reason, during which I'm going to fast or pray or what have you. So he has he has finished that vow. He has completed it. He had a vow. He doesn't has a vow. He had a vow. He's completed whatever that time period was and whatever that thing was that he had vowed to do to the Lord. He had an agreement with God, and he has got his hair cut. Then he's going to start moving from that point in time towards Jerusalem. In fact, so much so that he goes to Ephesus, and he's there. He goes into the synagogues and talking to the Jews, which interesting, by the way. Don't you remember a couple of days ago he said he was no longer going to be going to the Jews, but yet here he is right now. Paul, come on, be careful what you say. So we certainly aren't supposed to, because what Paul said a couple of days ago in Acts was that we would abandon evangelizing to the Jews, because he's doing it again. Okay, and he's so eloquent and impressive. They ask him to stay for a longer period, but he's like, no, man, I'm on the move. I've got to get to Jerusalem. Because why? Well, because he, as part of his vow, he now has to go and give a sacrifice at the temple, and that's something he has to complete within a period of time. And so he's got a timeline here. He's got a date with at destiny, if you will. But he says, if I can, I will come back. And so we'll see later in the book whether he gets that, if he accomplishes that or not. I don't want to spill the beans, no spoilers here. So he heads to Caesarea, and then it just says in a very quick little part of a verse 22, he went up and greeted the church. He went to Jerusalem. This is a lot of moving around. And then after that, after he went to the temple, took care of his sacrifice, doesn't even mention that. Of course he has to do that, because he took a vow. We talked about that earlier. We don't need to bring it all up again. But we do for us, because we aren't familiar with these things. He's greeted by the church. He takes care of what he needs to take care of as far as the sacrifice to accomplish and complete his vow. And then he goes back to Antioch. Okay? We'll talk more about this vow thing. But then he goes and spends some time in Antioch. Now, Antioch is his home base. Remember, that's kind of where he's working out of. And he spends some time there. He's recharging, doesn't say how long a time, but he's getting his batteries recharged. He's getting himself a little bit of rest, perhaps gathering up some more finances, if you will, what he needs to complete this next missionary journey, the third. Again, we don't know how long a time. It just says sometime. But that tells us, one thing that does tell us is that, we all need some downtime. We don't all, we need to be always evangelizing, but at some point we need to remember to take a little bit of time to recharge and to renew. Just as earlier this week on Tuesday, have Tuesday Zoom meeting with a group of ministers from around the U.S. That I talked to, and one of the things we were talking about in that was sabbaticals, and sabbaticals are a big part of a successful ministry. You need to take a sabbatical. I had one a couple of years ago in 23, I believe it was, where I was gone for a month. Now, a lot of ministers take a 3-month sabbatical. I'm not honestly a real big fan of that idea. I think that's a little too much time. But not if you're going to go off on the mission field, if you're actually going to go to Africa or something like that, or what have you, and do an actual mission trip, then that perhaps it's not so much. Or if you're going to be taking a class, maybe you need a semester or a quarter to go and take a class, something like that, perhaps. But I do think that there's a fine line there between a month and month is needed. 3 months, I think, is probably, in my opinion, too long. Because you start to get disconnected. And we want to be reconnected, not disconnected. Does that make sense? Okay. You can disagree with me. That's all right. We can disagree on that. That's all right. But again, we don't know how much time he spends there, but then he gets right back on that horse, and of course, he's not probably riding a horse, he's walking, but you know what I mean. Gets right back out there, and he's going from place to place again. He's going into Turkey again. He's going back through the region we call Turkey, Galatia and Phryg. And he is going to see all of the churches he has already started. He's going back to reinforce and strengthen and give them support and pat on the backs and rah-rah-rahs and all of that. So, but the thing I want to talk a little bit further about, and I know this is getting a little bit long already, is that vow. And that vow is an important thing. That's a vow. That was a deal he made with God, a covenant, if you will, he made with God. And we need to remember that in our lives, folks. We certainly, we live in a day and age when a vow seems to be kind of a shallow thing. Look at the divorce rate. We make a vow not only with our spouse, but with God, that we are going to remain with them for the remainder of our lives. And that unfortunately, the divorce rate is way too high. I know I've been divorced. That's a sin I have to answer for. I hope you don't have to answer for that one as well. What are we going to do? I've got videos I talk about divorce. We aren't going to delve into that too much. You can go look on my videos, search for the word divorce, and you'll find them. But at any rate, I digress. But other vows, all kinds of vows. Be careful what kind of a deal you make with God. We need to remember to be true to we want to be true to the deals we make with each other, but very important that you're true with the deals that you make with God. If you make a deal with God, then that's a serious thing, folks. That's called a covenant. Okay, and it could be a large covenant, a small covenant. You might be just a two-word thing that you say, Lord, I'm going to give you half of my income. If I win the lottery, Lord, I'm going to give it all to you. And you win the lottery and you keep it all. That's a bit of an exaggeration, a bit of an extreme, but you know what I mean. Be careful of those things. Be careful what you do. Be careful what you say, especially to the Lord. All right. With that, Paul is well on his way now for his third missionary journey, and we'll pick up on next Tuesday with the ministry of Apollos, and Apollos shows up. And again, then we'll move into chapter 19. If you enjoy these studies, please like and subscribe. If you enjoy them, please share them. We'd love to have you share them. We'd love to have you make a kind comment if you want to make a kind comment. Anything you can do to help us, help me, to spread the word of the Lord, I'd appreciate it. Guess what? The Lord would appreciate it as well. All right. Have a very blessed day. Be a blessing to someone today. And don't forget that God loves you. See you later. Take care.